Yeah. Okay. Now, having looked at the globalization in the previous lecture series, we are going to look at labor migration and its impact on development, because globalization is definitely linked to labor migration, or labor migration is linked to globalization, because it was not going to be possible for labor migration to take place if the process of globalization was not there. The increasing connectedness in the world has made it possible for labor to migrate from one place to another, whether it is intra or inter, I mean, migrating outside your country or within your country, all has been made possible by, technological changes, improvement in transport, and so on. So we shall look at labor migration, and then in the next series, we shall look also at human trafficking, because the two are kind of close, because sometimes in some circumstances, it is very difficult to draw a distinction when we have a migrant worker, but sometimes that migrant worker might turn to be a trafficked person without knowing. Anyway, we shall look at those because some of those are really debatable issues. But let us first look at labor migration and its impact on development. First, we have to look at key terms. Who is a migrant worker? According to the International Labour Organization, they describe migrant worker as a person who migrates from one country to another with a view of being employed. Okay? It includes also any person regularly admitted as a migrant for employment. So the United Nations General Assembly in its resolution in December 2019 described as a migrant worker as a person who is to be engaged in a remunerated activity in a state which is not a national. The United Nations Statistics Division defines also labor migration, for example, as foreigners admitted by the receiving state for specific purpose of exercising an economic activities remunerated from within the receiving country. So their length of stay is usually restricted, but that one now it depends on the type of employment that they hold. Their dependents also, if admitted, are also included in that kind of category. So while migrant workers are often international migrants, not all are. You may be an international migrant, but you may not be, like not all migrant workers are actually international or migrants. It is important to note that the difference between the definition of migrant workers and international migrants. Because an international migrant is defined as any person who changes his or her country of habitual residence, okay? That is according to United Nations Department of Economics and Social Affairs. So we shall have to discuss this because there are some migrant workers actually who have migrated and go and work elsewhere, but their status sometimes can be questions. There are those whom we can call maybe irregular migrant, depending on the changes that have occurred when someone has moved from one country to another. Still, we're defining key terms. So when defining a migrant worker, emphasis is placed on a person's citizenship rather than their country of birth. I think this is also very important because you may be born in a certain country and you may not be a citizen there. It's also possible because you may be residing somewhere as a resident. Maybe your father is a resident there, you are born there, but in terms of citizenship, you may not be the person of that country. So examples of foreign migrant workers can include a person born and working in a country in question, but does not have that citizenship, can also be considered a migrant worker. It can be those border workers, those who reside in one country, but they work in another country. But they can also be consular officials, people working in embassies and so on. So those can be also considered as migrant workers. We have other key terms that we have to look at, for example, immigration. Immigration is defined as a movement of people from one country to another, of which they are not natives. So if I'm in Uganda here, I'm a Ugandan, then I go to another country, that is Rather, when I go to another country, that country, when I'm, that process of migration is when you're not a native there and you've moved there. But emigration is to relocate out of the country. So if I'm in Uganda, I'm going there, that is emigration. But when I'm there, I'm an immigrant. So immigration is you're already in that country, like I'm in the US. I'm an immigrant. These are immigrants, like you have gone there. It's not your country of habitual residence. You have settled there, either for a short time or permanently. That's immigration. But the act of coming out of your country, that is emigration, to relocate to out of one's own country to another country. There are concepts like sending country, receiving country. Sending country refers to a country where the migrants depart from. You know? Like if people are moving from Uganda to maybe Qatar, Uganda can be considered as a sending country. Okay, so or sometimes we call them countries of origin. Okay, or a sending country. Sorry. Receiving country is also, it refers to a country hosting the migrants. Countries of destination or receiving country. We have also the concepts like push and pull factors. Push factors are the factors responsible for migrant decision to relocate. What makes them move away from Uganda, for example? Is it unemployment? Is it poverty? Yeah? Can be push factors. Factors responsible for migrants' decision to move away from their country. It can be political persecution. It can be for security reasons. Someone goes to seek for asylum somewhere else in another country. It can be because of socioeconomic factors like poverty and so on. And so the pull factors are factors at the other side of the world, where the people are going. The receiving country, factors in the receiving country that are the potential could attract migrants. It can be political, it can be security, it can be socioeconomic factors also, but some of these factors can be considered as, like if there is a growing, or let me say, an aging population, maybe in Italy, in Germany, or any other country, they may actually attract migrants so that they can work in some jobs. You know, there are particular jobs, by the way, that people there are not ready to take up. And then yet this government, they need people to work in those jobs. So they would want to admit some people to work in those areas. But quickly, let us look at the causes of labor migration. There are push factors and pull factors, as we have said. The push factors are, for example, economic vulnerability of developing countries' policies. You know, we can ask ourselves, there are some policies that may not be favorable for the workers, and then they decide to move. There's the issue of poverty. Of course, now poverty is a very broad term, but people have low incomes. You find that even medical personnel maybe gets 900,000 per month, like maybe 1 million, like doctors in Uganda. They're getting very little money. So someone thinks that, why can't I go to Australia? Or why can't I go to America? Those are push factors. Though sometimes our governments complain about loss of what we call brain drain, loss of medical personnel and so on, because they go abroad, but it's because of the challenges that they face. There are also natural calamities and famine in places, political conflict. They can also make people flee to go and look for, to move and go and work elsewhere. It can be also population pressure. It can be unemployment. People are graduating, but they don't find jobs. And so there are no opportunities. So someone says, oh, why can't I go and get some job, even if it means sweeping somewhere? So lack of social amenities and infrastructure and so on. There are some of these can be considered as push factors that make laborers, or let me say the workers, move away from their country. There are also pull factors. Growing urbanization and linkages through globalization is one of them. There is also migrant quest for enhanced personal economies of scale, like better earning. That also can be a pull factor. And can be also factors like strong ties with the former colonial masters, like most people in the French colonies, they prefer to go to France, so on. That also can be a pull factor. Relative cheap transportation costs can also be a pull factor, but also some of the pull factors that I've not written here as the aging population in the advanced countries can be also a pull factor, because there are countries that really need young people, yeah, to work. So also the demand for laborers in those, some of these countries may not actually admit that they need some workers in those casual laborers and so on, but they need them, okay? So those can be also factors. Oh, so they were continuing, I thought I had finished. So some of the pull factors also contains advanced economies' need for migrant workers to fill the jobs that they do not find the local workers willing to take them on at an ongoing wage. This is what I was trying to mention. The aging population, I already mentioned about it, and also employment opportunities and better pay, better conditions of living. Maybe the welcoming attitude of the host countries and citizens, okay? Mm-hmm. So there are a number of, some of these are considered as the pull factors. But the push factors, we had looked at some of them, and they can also include displacement, disease, escaping from criminal justice. You know, when it comes to displacement, for example, you find that in some countries, when they have internal conflicts, civil wars, they can lead to displacement, and someone feels like, okay, they have to go maybe away, yeah, and so on. So, because life becomes very difficult during post-conflict era. So there are key trends on foreign migrant workers. According to International Labour Organization in 2018, there was an estimated 163.8 million migrant workers globally. This is a huge number, of whom 11.5 million were migrant domestic workers. So these migrant workers and the international migrants total was 258 million. But so we have to understand that these migrant workers actually are really not in the same category, because some of them are actually skilled, and there are those who are semi-skilled, and maybe those ones who are unskilled. You see, because the jobs out there, they demand for people with different skills. And so some of the international migrants, okay, of course, you know, there's a way we categorize these migrants. So not all migrant workers are actually international migrants, but some of the international migrants can contain migrant workers, but not all of migrant workers are actually considered as international migrants, we shall see later. So among the migrant workers, 68.2 million are female worldwide. Male make up about 58% of the total migrant workers. Yeah, 1 in 8 migrant workers are between 15 and 24 years of age. So this is a young population that is migrating to go and look for jobs elsewhere. 6.8 of migrant workers are located in 3 sub-regions: North America, North, or Southern, and Western Europe. And then, in percentages, in the Arab states, we are seeing 13.8%. We shall look at it later that in Uganda, most of people are migrating actually to the Arab states. Okay. Yeah, so we are summarizing it in that form. Sub-regional distribution of migrant workers. A lot of them are going to the pink area, and that is North, Southern, or Western Europe, followed by the green area, that is North America, and then followed by probably the blue one, that is Latin America and the Caribbean. The rest are in small numbers. A number of them are going to 8.1. We have Eastern Europe, then we have Southeast Asia. Yep. Then we have also a number of them going to Sub-Saharan Africa. Yeah, because also in Africa, we have people migrating, for example, from Tanzania or from Uganda or from Kenya to Botswana because of opportunities that are offered there. So intra-migration within the continent are also common. Okay,